Originally, when I still believed in government authority, when I was a statist, I was obsessed with finance. I love the financial markets. I was a trader for a long time. I traded stocks, futures, and options. And after seeing what happened to my family and a lot of people around me during the 2008 financial crisis, I got really obsessed with figuring out ways to preserve wealth. So I started listening to a lot of the gurus to buy gold. Crypto wasn't even a thing at the time. Getting tangible assets like real estate. And as I was going on that journey, I came across Jeff Berwick, and he calls himself an anarcho-capitalist. So I started learning from him, and he had a podcast called Anarchast. And I thought there was just one day, I'd hear him talk about how government is slavery, and I'd always think, well, this sort of seems like an extreme position to have. Maybe just a little bit of slavery is good, right? I'm talking about the position that some libertarians have, or small government people have.
Minarchists, yeah.
Yeah, minarchists. I thought, I don't know, this is a bit extreme. And then there's something within me that just decided to start listening to his podcast, Anarchast, from episode 1, and just listen to the whole thing. I was just curious to understand his perspective one day and all the guests that he had on. And from that point, I realized no matter how you cut it, government's just not your friend. There's just so much proof as to the actions that it's taken in the past that are diametrically opposed to the best interest of everyone. So I realized government wasn't the solution, but I didn't really recognize what the solution was at the time either. But it wasn't until I discovered actually, before I discovered Mark Passio's work, I ended up having some serious health problems. So due to certain lifestyle conditions, I developed like a panic disorder, like extreme depression. I had multiple dissociative disorders and terrible insomnia. And it was the most awful experience of my life. And based off of what I had learned from Anarchast, Jeff Berwick's podcast, he had some holistic health practitioners come in that had actually had very similar experiences. And by connecting with those people, I was actually able to heal myself from all of those conditions fully without any medication or any intervention from the traditional medical industry. So that was extremely surprising because none of this was just strictly intellectual knowledge at this point. I actually had firsthand knowledge that holistic health practices worked, and they worked in very dramatically powerful ways. So that's when I woke up to the health side of it, that the traditional medical industry is not your friend, and those at the top are deliberately trying to hide information that would actually help people heal their health and get better, all for the name of profit. And there's also deeper reasons as to why they're doing this, but that's outside the scope of this interview. So after that, a couple years later, I discovered Mark Passio's work from What on Earth is Happening, went through his entire podcast, and that's when I was given basically the full picture. I realized all the knowledge I had up until this point was to prepare me for Mark Passio's work. And that's when all the pieces basically came together, and I realized on a very deep level what is the root cause of all the dysfunction that's happening in society. And it's when I really realized that it's a matter of breaking mind control and conditioning and undergoing that process of personal transformation that's really gonna free us. So from that point on, I went through Mark's podcast probably 2 years ago, from that point on, I knew I was right on the money. So I would say I became an abolitionist slash anarchist on a more superficial level back in 2016 after going through my health challenges and going through Jeff Berwick's work. But I didn't really become a true abolitionist anarchist until I understood the root causal factors very deeply when I went through Mark's work, and that was in 2020.